Knowing this near universal pattern helps to assess new brands and existing ones.
What don't marketers know?
Quite a lot. Marketers, I actually live in an anything goes world where the latest fashion or fad drives an awful lot of practice.
Segmentation is the recognition you can't serve everyone with equal satisfaction.
This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast, we have Danielle Talbot. Danielle is a marketing coordinator in postgraduate coursework at the University of Adelaide. Danielle was really kind of fortunate because she knew exactly what she wanted to do when she was younger. She always knew that she wanted to find a role and a career in marketing. And boy, did she make the most of that advantage. She got involved in all sorts of things like internships, committees, mentorship programs, all of these incredibly high-achieving things, which is obviously hand in hand with such a high-achieving woman. Danielle shares her insights as to how she stays up to date with what is happening in marketing and what is going on in the marketing world, because she uses that to maximize her own opportunities. We talk about the fantastic future we will all have in creating a new university, the creation of Adelaide University, and the intellectually stimulating marketing decisions that are naturally going to be made along that journey. We end our talk by discussing the fact that rejection may actually be redirection when you have a look at the grand scheme of things in life. I personally think that's a wonderful t-shirt idea that she should run with. And she then talks about how you shouldn't then get discouraged if something doesn't fall your way, because the next opportunity will be just around the corner. So without further ado, Danielle Talbot. Awesome. So welcome, Danielle, to the podcast. I just wanted to pause and thank you for taking time out of your afternoon and evening to speak to us today. Did you want to, I've known you for many years now, so I know you quite well, but would you like to provide a bit of a understanding or overview as to who you are for the audience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Danielle. I am currently the marketing coordinator for postgraduate coursework at the University of Adelaide. Before that, I sort of started my career in marketing with Zac and at the University of South Australia in the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So I was heavily involved in lots of different aspects of UniSA and the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, and sort of started my career in market research, and then have now kind of shifted into industry, but making sure that I still have all of those marketing insights and that real evidence-based sort of marketing approach and bringing that into my role. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. I think that's one of the things that industry could really benefit from, is to have that sort of evidence-based mindset. And so, yeah, you're a perfect advocate for that. So, you're not very old. I keep looking at myself in the mirror and I keep seeing more and more gray hair. And I keep doing life things like getting married and all those sorts of things. But you're definitely not. But earlier on in your life, when did you kind of think that you were interested in marketing? Was there any sort of, maybe you watched an ad as a kid, or maybe there was a certain course that you wanted to do? Was there anything that kind of struck you as being, yes, this is the sort of career I want to do?
Yeah, I think I always had an interest in that business, psychology, law, kind of communication sort of fields. And I guess I wasn't really sure where I wanted to take that. Probably it wasn't until maybe year 10, which I've come to realize is actually quite early. And I think I was one of the lucky people who actually did know that I wanted to do that sort of career in business and marketing. I remember sitting, I would wake up on a weekend, I would put Saturday Disney on in the background, and I would go through kind of old lifestyle and recipe magazines and fashion magazines, and I was creating my own versions as a kid. And that's what I would be doing on my weekend, which is really random. But I guess I always kind of loved that communication and creative kind of area. So, yeah, I think that's just naturally how I progressed into wanting to study marketing in comms.
Oh, that's really cool. What you did for fun, create your own magazines.
Yeah.
I kind kind of agree with you. I think year 10, from what I've been asked, because I ask everyone this question, right? Year 10 does seem to be rather sort of early. And I think that was somewhat advantageous for you, because did that mean you could then skew those sort of developmental years in high school to in like core business subjects?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I studied in, I guess from year kind of 10 into year 12, psychology, legal studies, business and enterprise, society and culture, and English communication. So they all kind of contributed to that theme of marketing, business, understanding how kind of society and businesses work together, and understanding that consumer behaviour sort of side of things. So I guess those subjects allowed me to have lots of different doors open going into university, but they all kind of fed into that marketing program.
Yeah. I really agree with you, because I was in a similar boat, I reckon, where, I used to watch sort of business sort of and marketing type television shows. People may or may not like Donald Trump, but even shows like The Apprentice, it was like, very aspirational in that sense, right? And I'm like, okay, this is a way potentially for me to better my life. And so I went into things like Open Day knowing that I wanted to do something in business, but I wasn't quite sure about marketing. And I remember chatting to someone at one of the booths, and next minute I wrote it as my first preference. Did you have a similar thing?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it just doesn't even feel like it was that long ago that I was in that role of sitting there with my parents thinking, what am I going to do? So I think some of my preferences was commerce, law and commerce, and obviously the marketing sort of programs. So I think just making sure that as a kind of high school student, you are just aiming for your best and aiming for actually what you like as well, because doing those subjects where you're actually going to enjoy them, you're always going to do better. I think just following the passions of what you're interested in, that kind of helped me make that decision into marketing for sure.
Yeah, great advice. You're very lucky to find your passion early and to be able to pursue it, which was good. So you enrolled into UniSA in a Bachelor of Marketing and Communications, which was, I think, maybe relatively new at the time. And I think it's fair to say that that's all you did. You isolated yourself from the world and just focused purely on your studies, no extracurricular activities at all. Of course, I'm lying there. You did an obscene amount of extra stuff. You were by no means lazy. One of the things that sort of stood out to me, and there's a number of them that I'd like to ask you about, was something called class reps. Do you remember being a class representative?
I do. That was a super great experience. I think just to actually be able to represent the student voice back to the university, and having that opportunity to talk to my peers about what they sort of liked about the courses that we were doing. It was just, a really great way to be more involved within the university, talking to academics, lecturers, building those sorts of relationships. That was really important. It was a really great role to have. And it didn't require too much effort either, but it was something great to add to the CV. I think it's a great opportunity for sure.
I can reassure you, as someone who's on the other end of it, who's currently running courses through University of South Australia, that feedback does get to us. Obviously, very anonymous, very confidential, but it always helps us to improve the course. So students have provided lots of constructive criticism or feedback, I suppose, over the last, I've been doing this for too long now. And I've always sat back and reflected and then thought about how I can make some changes for next semester. So rest assured, the feedback that you gave, Danielle, and all of the other class reps definitely does help. So you were also the vice president of a marketing club, is that right?
Yeah, so the UniSA Marketing Club, that was such a great opportunity. So I focused on, leading the committee, with our president, and also worked on a lot of their digital sort of marketing, which was a great experience to have as someone who, you know, I did a few internships, of course, but I think it was just another great kind of experience to expand my skills and apply those skills that I was learning within my university degree to the real world. And it was so great being able to actually talk to my peers, running events, which is something that I still love. We sort of revamped the business ball with a few of the other business clubs as well. So, and I think now, like, it's such a successful club, even still. I know some of the students who are still within those committees. And yeah, just seeing that they've kind of carried the baton forward is so incredible to see. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely going strong. So Millie Smith, who's the current vice president, you know Millie?
Yes.
Yeah.
She got the Ehrenberg Scholarship, and I was on the panel when she got selected. So yeah, so stoked for her and everything that she's doing too.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of reminds me of you in that sense. You know, sits around just on the couch, not doing much. They recently had I think it might have been the business ball. I don't know if I saw on LinkedIn, but they had like an incredible number of people who attended, and the pub crawls and stuff like that, all really important. And it's odd because it's, you know, you obviously learn quite a lot during your university degree, but I think it's the people you meet and those experiences that you remember 5, 10, 20 years later. And it's really nice that you and Millie actually created that for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's nice knowing that there's a little bit of legacy that you can kind of leave behind. And I think clubs are such a great way to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to just continuing to see how that, that committee and that club thrive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so during your undergraduate program, being such a high achiever, you're invited to something called masterclasses. Did you want to provide us with a bit of insights as to what those are?
Yeah, so the masterclasses were for high-achieving students, and you were invited by the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So that really focused on key academics within the institute presenting their latest research and insights. So it was so great as students to be able to, again, building up their networks with people from the institute, hearing about the key questions that industry are asking as well. Obviously, the Ehrenberg Bass Institute is engaged with so many key brands around the world. So being able to have first-hand access to those insights as a student was definitely something that, again, gives a greater edge amongst your peers, especially as you start to apply for different jobs.
Do you remember any of the key speakers that you saw during your time there?
Yeah, John Dawes, of course.
Oh, love John. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so great and presents just so well. Is so engaging. So I think that was one that's really stuck out for me. And also Sarah, when she talked about like luxury categories and things like that, there were two that really stuck out for me. So yeah, it was just interesting being able to actually, I guess, you're always kind of in your university student mindset, but then to actually hear what people are doing in the real world and the research that's actually informing all of those big brands, it was just something so cool and something that not a lot of university students do get to experience.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. So, and like Sarah Patrick, when she was here, and her topic was obviously about luxury brands, as you mentioned. So we had sponsors at the time and still do who very much operate in that space. So her research was critical to guiding some of their decisions. That's pretty cool for someone who was, I don't know, she must have been about 23 or 24 at the time. Like, that's pretty unbelievable, right?
Definitely, yes. Very cool.
And I agree with you. I absolutely love John's style of presenting. The greatest part I think about it is obviously he's so insightful and you can see that he's like thinking on the spot. But my favorite part is the noises that he makes. He often does things like ka-chuk and stuff like that. It's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's just taking me back now.
Yeah. I'll have to get John on the podcast and like hopefully he makes some noises.
Yeah.
So you also did things like mentoring programs. Was that as a mentor or a mentee, or did you do both? I couldn't quite.
Yeah, so I was a mentee in that instance. So that was actually run through the business school when it was that. Now it's a business academic unit, but it was basically the business mentor career program is what it was titled. And as again, sort of students that could apply for a position to have a mentor that came from industry and could really help guide students to advance their career and advance their place, I guess, as transitioning from a student into an employee or whatever it is that they wanted to do. So I had a really great mentor, someone who was actually working within the communications and marketing unit at UniSA. And that just, I guess, was my first real taste of working closely with someone that was working for a brand. And it was actually my first taster of, I guess, marketing within the higher education sort of category as well. I had the opportunity to be the coordinator of all of the volunteers at one of our open nights for the Gill campus at the time. So yeah, that was just such a great experience. And there was lots of different events and different activities that we could be involved in as mentees with our mentor to really just, take that next step and be prepared to enter the workforce.
Wow. Sounds like you had an incredible time there.
Yeah, it was great. And I guess that was run across, quite a few months. So being able to actually build up that mentee and mentor relationship was super important. And I think just also helping students gain those professional type skills as well, working so closely with someone who's in industry.
Yeah. Do you still maintain that relationship today?
We don't talk regularly, but I definitely do still have some conversations, and just being able to see and follow her kind of journey that she's still going on, and being able to, bounce back ideas. And I have a lot of other mentors now, even through Australian Marketing Institute. I've had a similar sort of mentor-mentee relationship as part of the Emerging Marketers program that I was part of a few years ago. And just building those relationships is so important, just to be able to bounce ideas off of people, being able to have that support person, someone who's gone through it all is, really, really important, I think.
Right. I didn't know AMI did something like that. How would you become involved in that if you were someone, I guess, they're industry focused, right?
Yeah, so the Australian Marketing Institute runs that program, I think, each year. And you can, as a career starter member, you can apply, I guess, for that sort of program. And you get paired with a mentor across Australia, actually. So I was partnered with someone in Sydney in a digital marketing agency, and I had expressed my interest in digital marketing and building up those skills. So having that sort of relationship was so important. I guess as well, while I was searching for a new kind of role, having someone who was kind of external and that could provide that guidance was really crucial too.
Yeah. And I guess being external, they have no dog in the fight or whatever. They're only interested in your benefit and your outcomes. So that must be really nice. And they're kind of independent. So
and I think the great thing about those programs is that people that apply to be mentors are actually there because they want to be. They genuinely they care about sort of helping that next marketing generation and have so much to offer and, I guess, bring back into the industry. So I think those sorts of programs are really beneficial for anyone that's interested.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So your undergraduate went swimmingly well, and as a result of your continued engagement with university and the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, you ended up doing a master's by research. Yeah, you did. What sort of topic did you look at?
Yeah, so I actually focus on out-of-home advertising. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story. We used to work together, but what actually made me so interested in out-of-home advertising was actually Kanye West.
Oh, right.
So I know he's a bit controversial, especially now, but I think some of the things that he's done has been quite genius, really. I think with his brand Yeezy, I guess it kind of went against the norms of what was sort of being done back in, I think it was like 2017, 2018. So I think he dropped his season 3 of Yeezy. He'd have all his seasons, the collections. He dropped that at a listening party that he had in Times Square for The Life of Pablo, like his new album. And then for season 6, his campaign around that is what really inspired my love for out-of-home advertising. So he had his wife at the time, Kim Kardashian West, upload fake paparazzi shots of her in his collection. It was unveiled at New York Fashion Week in 2018. And then that sort of began to dominate all of our feeds, because then we had some micro influencers like Jordan Woods and different influencers replicate those images that Kim had posted. So they were like clones essentially. And then all of those screenshots on Instagram were actually then put up around Times Square. It took over train stations, subway stations and everything. It was basically just everywhere in New York was all Yeezy season 6. And I thought that was just such an interesting campaign, a genius campaign that just went viral, and it just took the digital world back into the real world, and then it just went viral. So it went, it drove the digital world just into a craze, and it just made Instagram basically the brand's lookbook essentially. And I just thought it was so interesting. Like, it was just people doing, these influencers were getting Starbucks and buying McDonald's. And I think just in the minds of all of these people on Instagram and social media, seeing these influencers just doing everyday normal things that they do, like buying Starbucks within Yeezy's, like wearing Yeezy's clothes and their collection. Like, I just thought that was such an interesting campaign. And I ended up writing about that for my final assignment in promotional communication. So that was one of my final year courses at uni. And that was all about advertising, publicity, and marketing. And I was just so fascinated by that campaign and how it used out of home as a very different kind of platform to build that awareness and go viral both in the real world and the digital world. So long story short, that led me to really have an interest in out of home and just why the brands use that platform.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's a great story. Who was your supervisors for that one?
So that was Byron Shah. So I was really fortunate to have him, Kathy Nguyen, Steve Bellman and Margaret Faulkner. So all amazing academics and amazing marketers in their kind of specialization. So I was super fortunate to have all of them. Yeah,
absolutely. We've just gotten Kathy back from maternity leave, which is lovely to have. It felt like, it was about a year, I think, but it felt forever because she just does so much and has such a great presence on campus. So it's very nice to have her back. You should have been, you hear nothing but good things about all of them actually as supervisors, which is kind of nice. You get a bit of a great team there.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. And I think, having Kathy and Margaret and their sort of branding expertise, and obviously Byron and everything that he's an expert in. And then, of course, Steve with his media and even his analytical kind of skill set. It was a great team to have behind me in doing that.
Very cool. So you decided that you were calling it a day for academia, that industry really was your passion. And it kind of makes sense, you're pointing to this Yeezy campaign and your mentors that ended up following happened to be from University CMK, their own marketing team. So you made that transition, and then you've done something called the Marketing Week Mini MBA by Mark Ritson. So I think most people who are listening to this podcast would know or have heard of Mark, with or without a shirt. I'm not quite sure which one they've seen him as. Swearing or not swearing is also another one that he may or may not have been doing. Would you like to tell us about why you enrolled into the Mini MBA, potentially any benefits you got from it? I'm just very curious about it.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that program. I can definitely recommend it to anyone within the marketing field. I think a lot of maybe more senior marketers quite often do that program as a bit of a refresher as well, and just to advance their sort of theoretical knowledge and really taking it taking them back to basics in a way. But Mark is obviously so great. He's a great marketer. He's a really great teacher as well.
He's a very good presenter.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the program, it takes lessons from the world's best business schools. So what you would be learning within an MBA about marketing, and puts those fundamentals into 10 modules. So it covers market orientation and strategy and segmentation, positioning, the 4 Ps, and really guides you through that kind of marketing planning sort of process as well. So I think what it really instilled was the importance of a diagnosis, forming your strategy, and then worrying about your tactics after that, which I think is so important for people in marketing, to making sure that they actually understand their audience, forgetting what you know, forgetting that, sometimes we as marketers are just so in the weeds of what we're doing day to day. And sometimes we forget, just because we care about our brand doesn't mean that our audiences do. Everyone else is just going about their lives. They're worrying about their friends. They're worried about their families. They're worried about their jobs. They're not worried about our brand. So I think just, having an understanding of your audience and then worrying about those different levers that you have to pull to achieve your objectives. That's kind of what the program really kind of wanted to focus on. And I think that's so important for whatever level you're at in marketing. If you're in industry, it's super important.
Yeah. So does Mark kind of run the program? You said 10 modules. Are they sort of self-directed, or are they run as a 10-week schedule and you go week by week? Or how does he kind of run his program?
Yeah, so it's on demand. So he goes through each week, a new module over the 10 weeks. And then, so basically running through his presentation, his lecture style, a focus on different readings that he will recommend throughout the program. And then you complete the exam at the end of that. It's a great experience. And I think it was great to be able to, do that exam. You can talk to different people that's doing the program as well. So you get to network, you get to kind of draw on experiences of other people, you get to engage with Mark himself. Just a super great experience.
Yeah, perfect. So in terms of building a cohort there, so do you enroll in, I guess, a university structure where they have study periods, or can you start and finish kind of whenever you want? Or is there a certain date for an exam? I'm not sure how it kind of works.
Yeah, so they have, certain intake periods, similar. It's not really aligned to the normal university intake periods, of course, but there's different key intake periods that you can enroll in. And then you can, just go from there. You complete the exam and the modules, and then you get a certificate at the end, and that does sort of contribute to your ongoing professional development as well.
Perfect. And I think you got an A on your, I think that's how they roll, right? Yeah. That's really cool. That's very cool.
So I think it was a good thing for my confidence as a younger marketer, I think, to know that where I kind of sit with all these different senior marketers from around the world, to know that I got an A grade, that was pretty cool. That my kind of marketing knowledge is comparable to, those senior kind of brand managers from around the world.
Yeah. And do you engage in the, what's it called? Almost like an alumni of the program? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an alumni network that you can join, and you can still, obviously learn and talk to your peers. That's just another great kind of perk of completing that. And I was really fortunate as well that my employer at the time helped me fund doing that professional development piece as well. So that was a really great opportunity. My manager at the time and another one of my colleagues had actually completed the program as well. So it came highly recommended. And I guess having that skill set across a number of us within the team really just helped us become a strategic, high-performing marketing team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can totally see the value in executive education. And as you said, everyone, being on the same page or even speaking the same language, there's certain terms that you kind of move, even within marketing, as you move between different sections. So we've heard quite a lot about your education. Obviously, you are highly educated, which is unsurprising to me. What's kind of new to me, which is like, I guess, after you've left sort of University of South Australia. So I'm really quite fascinated about this. You have so much experience, but where I want to go is actually kind of go back in time to when you first started in almost like a customer facing role within like Target or Target. We used to call it Target, right? To try to sound fancy when we were younger. In a similar manner, like, so I worked at Big W since I was 14, and I can see benefits from, and actually some downsides as well, but mostly benefits from having done that. And I was just curious as to about what your perspective was working in like a similar type of retail role.
Yeah. Target was, it was so much fun. Sometimes I just miss it and I just wish I could go, redo an hour back at Target. It was just, such a great first job to have. I really, really loved retail. And I think I started out as a checkout chick and I worked across kind of sales, refunds, lay-by at the time when they had lay-by, even greeted people at the door as they were coming in and handing out catalogs. And then I kind of transitioned into when online orders started coming through a bit more. So the pick, pack and dispatch. So focusing on, getting those kind of items to people in their online orders. So, I guess I kind of worked across a few areas of the business, stock taking and all those sorts of things. I think just having that type of role, I think whether it be in retail or hospitality, it just teaches you such important life skills, from communication to problem solving to conflict resolution, I think is a big one, building up a team. And I think for me as well, that was my first kind of role, being able to actually lead and mentor other people as well. So it was a great way to start my career, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's something that if you're an undergraduate student potentially enrolled in my marketing course and you're listening to this and you think, am I wasting my time, or am I unfortunate to need to do retail or hospitality or any sort of job when you are still studying? I think what you can see here is that someone as successful as Danielle, that's what she did, and she found it extremely beneficial. And like you said, mentoring and mentee sort of relationships at the beginning, conflict management's a big one, right? Especially working in those high pressure situations. So that's really, really nice to hear. And I agree with you 100% on that. That walking into my first, I guess what you'd call like real job, like full-time job, those skills I think have helped for sure. You've done a number of internships. Now, this is something I'm not very familiar with at all. So I'd love you to run us through, how you found internships, how you managed to apply for them, and I guess kind of what they involved and anything that you sort of learned from them. I suppose that's 4 questions. How dare I load you up so much?
No, all good. Internships I think are the most crucial thing that you can do as an undergrad student. I think it's expected essentially now, I would say. I think you are going into roles now, especially in marketing, where it might be an entry-level role. And unfortunately, some of those times, an entry-level role will still require a little bit of experience. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. And I think anything that you can do while you're an undergraduate student to gain a little bit of extra real-world skills is, hugely beneficial. So for me, I did my first internship with SA Style magazine. So I was invited to do that through the university after receiving the Ehrenberg Scholarship. So this was a really great opportunity, number one, for me, of course, to promote myself, gain some skills, and actually kind of be in a real world office in marketing and comms. But it was also kind of a great opportunity for the university to promote our marketing programs as well. So it was a kind of twofold opportunity for us there. So I got to work with the editor and the marketing manager on one of their issues. And I really got to do some really cool things, from blog writing. I contributed to their web redesign. And I also got to go on some really amazing shoots for a few restaurants in Adelaide, and also a few fashion shoots as well, which was super exciting. And the magazine was, it had a little section on me and marketing at UniSA. So Mum was really proud of that one. But it was just great to be able to network. Again, I think it always comes down to networking and just having on my resume that I actually did some work in the real world. I've had those professional conversations. I've learned about what work attire to wear. I have, just had those professional experiences that are so crucial as you go into the real world.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely incredible. That for someone who, you were in your undergraduate, were you?
Yeah, that was actually my first probably 6 months, which was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you're going on these shoots and being around people who are actually doing stuff. I think it's really cool how you had that little section in the magazine. I bet your mum's still got a copy.
Yeah. All the family's got a copy, I think.
Not that you haven't done a lot since, right? Proud parent moments. I think that's kind of what the graduations are about as well. I'm very much over, every time I've gone to the graduation, I'm like, graduation. But us parents are there with their little cameras.
Such a proud moment. And I guess the other internship that I had, I actually gained that through the relationship that my mentor, as part of the UniSA mentor program, had with this person. So this was at Guildhouse, which is a not-for-profit organisation which supports visual artists, craftspeople and designers to really build up sustainable careers. So that was such a great experience, and actually being able to apply my marketing skills to something that had like a greater cause as well. It wasn't just a brand, it was a not-for-profit. So I was helping them build up their membership growth strategy and putting that real marketing lens on building up their members. And I really helped on, market research, their website redevelopment, content migration. And I think it was just such another great opportunity to be able to apply all of my learnings from university into that real world job. So I was there 2 days a week for almost a year. So it was just such a great kind of opportunity. And I could actually lead something myself within that role and have guidance from the CEO and that marketing team. So that was a great experience too.
Yeah, I mean, they must have had a lot of faith in you to let you actually lead projects at that age. That's really impressive. So then you took on potentially simultaneously a research assistant role with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. Some people who are listening to this may be research assistants themselves or have been in the past, or potentially in high school. We've noticed the audience actually getting a bit younger for the podcast and thinking about moving into a marketing degree. So did you want to explain to them what a research assistant is, what sort of roles you have?
So a research assistant at the Institute basically provides support to the Institute's team of marketing scientists. So across their academic research and all of their industry projects, the research assistants really help on things like data coding, analysis of data, literature reviews and summaries, and lots of different proofreadings, editing of academic papers, and helping support writing reports for industry as well. So such a varied role. And again, just being able to have that exposure to different kind of industries and markets, working with those academics, again, gaining those insights about what industry actually cares about as part of your undergrad degree was just, it was such a great opportunity and kind of really sparked my love for research as well.
Right. So it was a good sort of feed-in process for doing the Masters by Research.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, those skills that we kind of developed in that role was, super important as you kind of transition into that marketing scientist role.
Yeah. So if you're like, I guess, kind of helping someone else with their own data analysis or coding or literature review, then when it came to doing your own, you found it a bit easier?
Yeah, definitely, I would say. And I think as well, applying for that marketing scientist role, knowing that you kind of have those skills behind you just really sets you up for success and probably helps advance you a little bit amongst other peers who might not have had that background.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on it as well. Like it kind of gives you a good opportunity to network broader within the institute. So people who you would never have an opportunity to chat to, potentially like a Professor Jenny Romanick or a Professor Rachel Kennedy are guiding you, and that'd be like, you know, Zac who or Danielle who, but as a research assistant, and they're training you on how to do something. And especially if you impress them, then you have a greater opportunity to sort of be welcomed into the fold.
Yeah, and it's also a great opportunity to find out what kind of things you like in marketing as well. Just getting a bit of taster across lots of different areas, lots of different projects, whether that be maybe distinctive assets or category entry points or whatever it is. And of course, you are actually working with some really huge names in marketing. I don't think a lot of undergrads sometimes realise that until it's too late. But yeah, having that opportunity is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So you did a vacation research project. How did you find that one?
It was great. My first project with you, Zac.
Slightly biased in that one.
So again, I guess for me, talking back to the not-for-profit kind of internship that I had, this was another great project that I had an opportunity to do within that social marketing kind of space. So that was, yeah, definitely something of interest for me. So we focused on consumer purchasing kind of patterns for fresh fruit and vegetables in that category, and really having the opportunity to apply the laws of marketing to that category, which is something that hadn't really been done before. So that was such a great kind of project, again, as an undergrad to have. And it was over the summer kind of period. So didn't, take too much out from my studies. It was a paid kind of role. So again, another kind of great way of getting my name out there, networking with senior academics, understanding what kind of industry, again, is really looking for, and expanding my skill set beyond just the typical, consumer packaged goods categories, and expanding that into a different category, which hadn't really been done before.
I developed personally a lot from that project as well. So I don't know if you realize, but that project ended up leading to 3 or 4 journal articles, a number of different conference papers. So it took me to Singapore. It's taken me to Germany. It's taken me to Queensland and to Melbourne. There was a TEDx talk about the research that we did together. So it's crazy how something that's so small, which I think was a 6-week project with, at the time an undergrad student, and I think I was a master's by research student or something at the time, right? I was pretty junior myself. And we were working with like Svetlana Bogmalova, who's now at Flinders, had stemmed out all of this different outputs. And it's wonderful to see like the results of those are being shared with like Hort Innovation Australia, which is so nice to see as well. So yes, your research, Danielle, over 6 weeks had a big subsequent flow-on effect. So I do thank you for that one.
Yeah, no, it was so great. And I think as an undergrad, having the opportunity to co-author a paper with people like yourself, senior academics, having it published and presented at different conferences where industry is actually actively engaged in your research, is such a cool thing to be able to take, whether you decide to go into research and continue postgraduate study, or whether you decide to go into industry. Already kind of having that knowledge, having those things behind you, it was such a great thing to have. Yeah,
absolutely. So I know you're in contact with Millie Smith, as we mentioned before. So she's done one of the recent version of the Summer Vac program. Are you aware of how it's changed?
Yes, I think you're on Teams now.
Mm-hmm.
And working on one kind of project or 2 projects. So it sounds like it's, definitely kind of changed quite a bit. But I think what is really crucial there is that you're now working with your peers to that kind of common goal. And I think having the more brains, the better. So yeah, I think it's great how it's kind of shifted and evolved over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And it was because of that, basically. We had students who were working in the same office, working on very different things. And some of them were purely doing like literature reviews. Others were purely crunching numbers. Others like yourself were doing both and then creating conference papers. And there was a disparity of outcomes. And then obviously a bit of a disparity of satisfaction and on the student, but then also us as to what the outputs kind of were. So we created it's a 7 or 8 week program. I can't remember. I lose track. And yeah, you're right. They work in teams of 3. They do laws of growth type of analyses, things you'd be familiar with, like Double Jeopardy. And they present and do little mini presentations every week as a team. And then right at the end, they present to the entire institute, which is an insane opportunity for to have Byron Sharp as your audience when you are, a second or third year undergraduate student is absolutely like a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think someone said to me back in the day at uni that presenting to the institute is probably the hardest presentation that you ever have to do in your career. And to this day, it's probably true. But like just as an undergrad and then going into industry, how can you not go out into the world with confidence, knowing that you have presented to Byron and Jenny and those sorts of amazing marketers? So yeah, just such a great experience. And yeah, it's great that it's continuing to evolve and kind of meeting the needs of industry and students, and then what you guys are looking for at the institute as well.
And you're absolutely right there. And it is both. We are so thrilled for people to do the program and then not enroll in a master's by research and then go out into industry and actually have a really deep understanding of those initial parts of the knowledge anyway. And then, those who are bright like yourself and want to continue, that's a win. So we see it as like, there's no loss there basically. So it's a great program. I think it's like $400 tax-free scholarship money now. It's pretty good. I wish that, I did a summer back, but this was like old school. Yeah. The new program, I think it's going into its 4th year next year, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you moved to a marketing scientist, which I guess is hand in hand with doing that master's by research. So, master's by research, academic literature reviews, crunching data for a thesis and answering research questions. How does that work hand in hand with your role as a marketing scientist? Did they complement each other or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think being able to work on my master's, of course, and actually working on a topic that as a marketing scientist and working with my peers, I could tell was something that was of interest to the institute and, of course, industry as well. So my master's kind of fed into a larger piece of work that the institute kind of prioritised as a result of industry feedback and focusing in on, media and how as media professionals and marketers, we can sort of optimize the media mix and understand how media performs. So doing that hand in hand with then being a marketing scientist, where I was working on different commercial marketing research projects for local brands, national brands, even global brands. I just gained so much experience that could be across both my master's and in my paid role as a marketing scientist. So across, analysis of like quantitative and qualitative analysis, taking all those skills from my back scholarship and my research assistant role, data coding, things like distinctive asset measurement, questionnaire design, fieldwork data collection, writing for proposals and tenders, and industry report writing as well. There was a lot of overlap where it was really, really, just so great to have those skills. And I think as a marketing scientist, working on projects where I was actually helping provide strategic marketing recommendations to global brands, and sitting next to people like Kathy and yourself who are leading those conversations with internal marketing teams at different brands around the world. It was such a great experience.
Yeah, it sounds like it really gave you opportunities to pursue either at the end of your master's. So if you're like, okay, great, I want to do a PhD and I want to become a lecturer and one day a professor, you had those options because you had those skills. But at the same time, you weren't sort of pigeonholed into that by the sound of it. You could do client-facing stuff and behind the scenes like data analysis and questions. That's amazing. And obviously you took the latter role because you quickly found yourself within Lumination. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I guess the decision to leave the institute was definitely a difficult one. It was hard to decide whether to go on and do that PhD kind of pathway and go into academia, which is something I probably had always had in the back of my mind as something that I would want to do. And still to this day, it's not something that's off the cards at all. I think for me, I obviously had that passion of working with industry. I loved that part of the marketing scientist role, being able to actually work with brands and I guess be an extension of their marketing teams essentially and provide recommendations, which was something that was so great as part of the role. So I guess I just wanted to start supporting brands and really getting those laws of marketing that the Institute does so well and has all the evidence for, and starting to use those skills and get that out into the real world.
Yeah.
So I made the decision to join Lumination as their marketing coordinator. And at the time, it was just myself and one of our graphic designers. So being actually able to kind of contribute to the growth of that company, which then at that point, it was more of a startup, I guess, or a bit of a scale up kind of technology company. So really focusing on educational technology. They build immersive technology, so things like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, that really sort of enhances the world around us. So allowing primary school, secondary school, tertiary students as well to begin to use those immersive media technologies and use that to learn better, essentially. So again, for me, I guess it was a role where I could actually contribute to something bigger, which was really great. So that brand or company was started in the CEO's garage, essentially. And in 6 years, it has expanded nationally into Melbourne and Sydney as well. And while it does focus still on the educational sectors, it's also expanded into industries like defence and mining and things like that as well. So I think that was just a great opportunity. And I think a lot of people in marketing want to get into tech companies. There's like Canva, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. I think, there's definitely lots of people out there, I'm sure, that are listening that are interested in those sorts of roles. And sometimes being in a startup environment, you learn so much because you are doing more than one type of role. You are doing lots of different things that are sometimes outside of your normal day-to-day responsibilities. You get involved in product development and working with sales and working with software developers that are building out all of these different products. It was just a really great role as my first kind of thing in industry because I was learning such a varied skill set.
Yeah, far out. And how did you go about landing that first role? Was it LinkedIn, or did you find it on seek.com.au?
Yeah, so it was actually on LinkedIn. So I applied for the role and just, had the interview. And I guess at that time was just putting my feelers out there to see what was sort of available. As I mentioned before, entry-level roles, you do need a little bit of experience behind you. So I think having all of those other experiences I had working as the vice president of the marketing club and doing their digital marketing, doing my internship across those two kind of internships and gaining those skills, that really helped me be able to show on my resume that I actually I did have a skill set there as well. And then, of course, the Institute's experience and working with big brands, I think that really, really helped secure that role.
Yeah. So in that marketing coordinator role, what would a typical day look like for you? Or being a startup, by the sounds of it, it varied from day to day. So that's probably not a great question now that I think about it.
Yeah, well, it was very varied. And I guess for me, part of that was helping to build out the marketing and communications team. So from hiring, a few more content creators, when our Chief Marketing Officer came on board, it was a lot of working quite closely with him. And I was so fortunate to have a great kind of manager in him that was really supportive and let me lead a lot of projects myself. So really focusing on that end-to-end brand and marketing function. So from devising the marketing strategy for that brand from the ground up, that was an amazing opportunity. Lots of project management, lead generation, website, social media management, copywriting, working closely with our creatives, working with our software developers on how do we communicate your product to the average everyday person. So they don't understand software, but they need to get the product. So being able to be in that kind of role where you're translating things that are, might not be understood by everyone. And I think that was a skill set that I probably also took from the Institute as well, having that kind of marketing science background and then being able to translate our findings into what's actually relevant for other people. So lots of different things, stakeholder management, branding, lots of different things every day.
Far out. So then you got promoted, from what I can tell, to a brand, what do you call it? Marketing lead. How did your role kind of change in that situation?
Yeah, so I think something that I was told when I was younger that really stuck with me was act like a leader before you are one. And I think it's just something that's always stuck with me because my role honestly didn't really change a lot because a lot of the things that I was already doing was what I was supposed to be doing in this promoted kind of role. Managing our content creators, working on our marketing strategy and really being that brand custodian within the team to make sure that across all of our organisation, everyone understood what kind of goals that we were working towards as an organisation, as a marketing team, and what we were really trying to do and supporting. I think a big thing in tech as well is supporting obviously the products, but the people that are at the forefront of developing those products. So being able to work with them on building out their own personal brands, especially as a startup, and, building out people and developing their sales kind of skills and things like that, how to use LinkedIn, all of those sorts of things that really contribute to building up a brand at that startup and scale up phase was what I was able to do in that role.
Yeah. Love it. So you should be acting like a leader and that'll help you get promoted. So almost be acting like that role before you could. Yeah, I love that. I think that's really great insights.
I think it's something that, it's just so important. I think that's something that, lots of undergraduate students can be thinking about as they get into their first kind of role. And then as they want to start working up the ranks as well, is just thinking about how can I put my best foot forward and how can I be recognized as a leader in whatever I'm doing.
Any tips for that? It's about how you can sort of show that leadership or I guess you went through a whole different series of them. Have you seen people poorly doing this?
Look, I think it starts from the top, and I think having good role models is super important. And I think that's why, for me, those mentor relationships were very crucial because I could see people, how they were acting professionally, how they became leaders in their field, and then wanting to give back to the marketing community as well. I think that was something that was crucial in me learning about being a leader as well. I think having people that you look up to is super important. But I guess not doing it so well is probably just not showing that you care. I think in our roles, we have to show that we actually do care about what we're doing, having an interest in it as well is super important. And I think just having that positive attitude and getting involved in different things. And sometimes that is beyond what your day-to-day duties might be. But taking ownership over different projects, putting your hand up to say, hey, I would love to be involved in that if there's any opportunities, things like that. I think that would put people in a really good position to demonstrate those leadership skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great insights there. So you missed the university world, but you didn't want to come back for a PhD. You decided to come back to the sector, but down the road, I'm guessing on the east side of the city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you joined the University of Adelaide. How did that come about? Or like you were looking for a transition, new sector, new challenges? What was it about that role that you sort of really drew you to it?
Yeah, a few different things, I guess. Number one being that I did miss the higher education kind of sector. I guess during my undergraduate degree, I was quite involved with our communications and marketing unit as well. And I always loved that side of things, even being a student ambassador and going out to schools and talking about marketing, talking about my career journey, presenting at open day and things like that is something that I definitely missed. And then the other side of it was the role was specifically for promoting postgraduate study. Okay. So as someone who had done postgraduate study myself, I thought I can definitely have, a role to play in that. I can see myself doing that. It's something I'm passionate about, to have the experience in it. I love working on campaigns. So it really seemed like the perfect role.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you did transition, did your role and your day-to-day look different from then when you were with Illumination?
Yeah, it is quite different, I would say. I think largely that is attributed to the fact that we have a much bigger team now within, working within the university, much bigger marketing team where I can really specialise and focus in on one thing. And while you, I guess, work across lots of different projects, work across lots of different teams, I can really focus in on my role is campaigns and working towards a goal for the postgraduate audience, essentially. So that's what I really kind of liked. And I love that about the role. And I love being able to work within a team that we all kind of focus in on one thing, but we're all working towards those common goals.
Yeah, I know. Very, very cool. So those of you who aren't aware, so there's currently both of the vice chancellors and both of the councils have signed off on the potential creation of a new university. You're not allowed to use the term merger. It's a new university. And I guess technically that is correct because they do essentially scrap both of those universities and they cease to exist. And then a new one is created. So I guess they're technically correct. Working name University Adelaide University, sorry. A big part of that is obviously behind the scenes, the logistics, the IT system apparently is like any organization is going to be a massive challenge. From a marketing front, is there anything that you're allowed to publicly say on this as to what's happening, or is it, I'm guessing, feel free to say or deny whatever you feel.
I guess there's not a lot within the public domain as yet from a marketing perspective. But I guess the brand that we are working towards or the positioning of that kind of future-focused university, I think, is so exciting. And the fact that it's going to be drawing on the strengths of both of our universities, I think, is something so great. And I guess focusing on, leading curriculum across Australia and really focusing in on that student experience, greater access to education and that sort of thing. I think that is so exciting. And I guess from a marketing point of view, being able to play a role in that down the line will be super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much on the optimistic side of the equation. And one of the reasons I'm really optimistic about it is the endowment fund for scholarships. which is designed to pump out anywhere between $4 to $6 million, I guess, depending on the interest rate at the time. That purely goes to providing scholarship opportunities for low socioeconomic households. I think regardless of whether it goes through or not, I think we're 99% of the way there through the legislation. That's a fantastic idea because I think we all know that there's proven benefits to education, definitely improving people's lives. Choose the right career, obviously work really hard like yourself and take those initiatives and it can change your absolute life. So that's something from my perspective that I really have appreciated from this. And, you know, they win over hearts and then minds, I guess. So that was a really nice way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's super exciting.
And I'm very curious from like a marketing sort of side of things as to, you know, how do you go? Like both universities have logos, both of them have brand names, both of them have colors that they use and taglines. And how do these distinctive assets play out in a new university? What don't they keep? What do they keep? I'm sure there's all sorts of great research and evidence that's going to back some of these cool decisions. And I think from my perspective, I find it very intellectually stimulating. But from your perspective, you must find this to be like, I'm at the right place at the right time. This is extremely exciting to be part of these, you know, closed room discussions and being at the forefront of this. And, you know, really quite relatively young in your career to be like, I've had the opportunity to build a brand for what could eventually be the largest university in Australia. That must be pretty fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I think someone said, you know, it's a once in a career kind of position to be in. So yeah, super excited to see how it all plays out. And I know, yeah, behind the scenes, everyone's working super hard on those kind of outcomes there. So yeah, lots in the works. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I can't wait. So they'll go to market, I think, you know, halfway through next year or something. There's curriculum designs and all that going through. And then, you know, doors should be open 1st of January, hypothetically, in 2026. So all things going well, which, you know, there's a lot of people working behind the scenes on different projects, which is, yeah, pretty cool. Different parts I'm trying to, or getting involved at the moment, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's happening within the university sector at the moment is something called Teaching Research Nexus, which is about making sure you have the most up-to-date research that is then entered into the classroom. Usually from the university that's, you know, the forefront, which for marketing it is the Ehrenberg Bass Institute here. So I'm leading initiatives to that space, but I'm wanting to know, how do you bridge that research industry nexus? Is there ways that you try to keep up with sort of what's happening in the academic world and how that can build bridges for industry, or is there industry-based research that you follow that you take insights from?
Yes, there are so many. I think our field is changing so rapidly. There are new trends, there are new channels coming out all the time. And I think it's super important for all of us to be keeping up with those trends. No matter what level you're at, we do not know everything. We just have to follow those different trends and stay up to date 100%. So I think a big one for me is LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time following different agencies, different research institutes, just looking at what is actually coming out, following different podcasts, reading different books, following key people within the marketing realm. And even the tech realms as well. I think with the increase of marketing technology and trends, it's super important to follow that as well. And I think people within their undergraduate studies really need to be at the forefront of all of those emerging trends as well. And of course, that is where those real world experiences as part of your undergraduate studies is really important. But just being able to go into interviews and being able to talk about some of those emerging trends, I think puts you in a really good position to be able to, demonstrate again that you care, that you are kind of a leader. You know, as an undergraduate student, you can still have all that amazing knowledge and continue to build upon that knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So LinkedIn, definitely a bit of a source to see what's currently happening. Do you go to websites like B&T or Mumbrella or Ad Age or anything like that? Or yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
all of those. Subscribe to all of those, definitely. It's great. Sometimes you can see that the institutes, researchers have research that's published. And again, it's all insights that have actually been translated for industry. And I think that's so important in this kind of piece of work, is that as academics, we are translating the information and insights that we're finding into what's actually applicable for industry. And I think it's so important to think about the context of our work and how that applies to people in industry. I think that's really what's going to help, translate all of that university research into knowledge that can actually be distributed across the industry.
Yeah. Do you find LinkedIn to be quite good because it can fill in small pockets of time that would otherwise be kind of useless? Like you're waiting for the lift, for example, or you're in the lift and, that's maybe a minute or two that's kind of dead time. So you could be, doom scrolling on Instagram or looking at funny memes or something, or you can figure out what's the latest trends and everything in industry. Is that how you're kind of using it?
Yeah, I would say so. I guess I have my patterns on my phone where I'm like Facebook, quick scroll, Instagram, quick scroll, and then I always just end up on LinkedIn. And I guess because I've built up my feed to have all of those different kind of brands and key influencers that are talking about such interesting things that I'm just most interested in going on LinkedIn. And I know some of the different kind of functionalities that they're introducing, like even the key kind of areas and topics that are now coming through LinkedIn where people can actually contribute to that as key influencers within that field. So if it was advertising, for example, people are adding now their expertise to those topics. And I think it's just interesting to pass the time reading that, kind of like Reddit threads, I guess. But it's for marketing on LinkedIn.
Cool, and probably a little bit more professional than Reddit.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's a great way to pass the time. And you're building your knowledge in 1 minute just by reading an article or reading a post that an influencer in marketing posted.
I think I'm using LinkedIn wrong. How do I make my feed better, I guess? So should I just do you need to follow brands or follow people? Because a lot of my LinkedIn is mostly people moving around between jobs and, that sort of stuff. And I find that very interesting because, it's people I know, obviously, and it's like, oh, they've moved from here to there, or they've moved from this city to that city, or they've been promoted or something like that. Awesome to see, right? I love people being successful and what they're doing in life. But I don't think my feed is skewed as much as yours is towards actual stories. So what settings do I need to change?
I think it's just, algorithms and things are changing all the time, and it's quite hard to keep up with all of that. But I think the best way to find out what's happening in industry is following all those pages. So as much as we might subscribe to B&T and get those emails at a quick glance, everyone's sharing everything on LinkedIn. And I think just following those sorts of pages, and again, following people like Mark Ritson, like Byron Sharp, like Jenny, Rachel Kennedy, all those different people who are actively engaging, whether they are commenting on other people's posts, they're posting themselves, they're being tagged in something. It's just such a great way to stay informed. And I think as well for undergraduate students, when you're networking with people, say you are in the business mentor program, or you are, you're working at an internship or anything like that, you actually have things to talk about with people because you're seeing things on LinkedIn or wherever it is. So it's just a great way to kind of have extra things to talk about and actually contribute to the conversation as well.
That's a really cool life hack, I reckon. If you go to networking events and you're like, everyone gets a bit shy, like even the most extroverted people get shy, but you're like, oh, I've read a few stories that people will find interesting, they're topical, I can contribute. That's a good life hack there. But that is also my to-do plan tomorrow, is to make sure I load up my LinkedIn feed and to make it more content heavy. I think that's like that insight. So yeah, you've done your undergraduate degree and you've done research as well, academic research, and now you're in industry. Have you seen any, like, what are the similarities and differences between the two in terms of, what you learn and then what you practiced and vice versa?
Yeah, I think at uni you're immersed in marketing. As a marketing student, you're immersed in it. That's what you're doing essentially full time, perhaps. If you have, you might have a part-time role or whatever it is. But I think you kind of go out into the world thinking that everybody cares about what you do. I don't know if that's the case for everyone, but I would say that that's not the case. People don't really care. And sometimes, unfortunately, marketing can be the first kind of department that is cut from the budget sometimes. So I think as the new generation of marketers are coming through, I think we have, the job to be done is also demonstrating our value, demonstrating our kind of strategic kind of purpose and how we play a bigger role in organizations beyond just here we put an ad on a billboard that people drive past sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more important than that. And it's so, I guess the scope of what we do is a lot bigger. So I would say that is one thing. But I guess the difference between kind of research and marketing, I don't know. I guess just being able to translate the research and using it in your day-to-day role. And sometimes I guess people don't value research. So I think coming from a background in market research, I'm fortunate now that I work within a team where people have similar backgrounds. They really, really value having market research and using that research to understand our audiences, which is what I spoke to before. But I know that there are some kind of bad stories where you go out into a marketing role and the company has no understanding of their audiences. They have no understanding of these simple marketing laws and things like that we learn at uni. So I think just being the custodians of that sort of thing and having the background that you all have, and really fortunate to have learned. Lots of other marketers and marketing graduates around the world haven't been able to learn the things that you learn. So being able to take that out into industry, I think, is something amazing that you can actually do and contribute to a bigger piece of the company's kind of strategy beyond just marketing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess because you did come from that background, did you have challenges or how did you find the best way about, demonstrating the value of your role as a marketer and marketing as a whole, and making sure that the decisions that are made in that realm are not seen as, artsy fartsy or something like that, but actually have some sort of scientific evidence behind them? Was that a challenge, or was that something that you were quite good at?
I think having the background that I had, it was a lot easier to do so. So going out there and being able to talk strategically from, people out there were probably seeing me as a young graduate, but the way that I could actually express myself as a marketer and talking about things that people at really senior kind of brand and marketing management roles understand, I think that put me in a really good position. And being able to go to senior stakeholders and say, hey, like, our marketing decisions are actually backed by evidence. We've got the data, we've got the research to back up our decisions. You can't really go wrong in that respect.
Yeah. So having those fundamental evidence behind you gives you, I guess, the confidence and I guess your own abilities anyway to put forward a strong case.
Yeah.
It's good insights. Make sure you have the evidence because, very, very good. So is there any campaigns or anything that you've run or any sort of, that you think are something you're particularly proud of that you would like to run us through?
Yeah, so I guess I lead the Adelaide Business School marketing campaigns within our team with my manager. So I guess we have worked on understanding our audiences. We've got the research, as I mentioned. We've got our strategy. All of our decision making was kind of backed by our evidence. And thinking about our messaging, our creative. So I guess our focus for this year for Adelaide Business School was maintaining that kind of, I guess, always on approach, and really trying to build up the associations between the University of Adelaide and having a really great business school, and it's the place to study, essentially. So we developed sort of an integrated approach across lots of different channels. So it was a multi-channel campaign. And really focusing on our key messages, which is sort of creating and accepting your next challenge of your career, and focusing on your next career move with the Adelaide Business School. So we actually shared the story of one of our incredible First Nations alumnus, David Mallet. So he is the owner of an Indigenous owned and run business, Yanun Project Services. So we kind of made him the face of the University of Adelaide's MBA and the Adelaide Business School's MBA in 2023. So really just sharing his incredible story. And it's a story that really resonated with audiences, and we saw such great engagement. So I guess just focusing on telling those authentic stories has been kind of crucial for us, and is something that, I think any marketer should really focus on, that sort of authenticity piece, rather than just making it about what you think the audience wants to see.
Yeah. So you had obviously a really great piece of creative by like an inspiring story from what seems like quite an aspirational man, that would, hopefully... wonderful, wonderful story. In terms of your media, you mentioned like a multi sort of channel approach. So like social media or television or radio or print or your favorite topic, out of home.
Yes, it was definitely...
Was this the season 6 of Yeezy campaign for the Adelaide Business School?
We did feature the brand on some out-of-home spots, which for me, of course, was exciting. Running across social media. So, Meta, LinkedIn, YouTube, print, search, of course, as well, display, Spotify. So all those different channels. So having that really integrated marketing kind of approach. And working at a brand, I guess, where you do have the larger budgets as opposed to working in that kind of startup environment. That was really great opportunity. Campaign work is really fun. And luckily I've always had an interest in it. So I guess, I think as well, it's important to remember that you're thinking, again, back to that strategy piece. Campaigns are just a tactic that you're kind of pulling and using to achieve your objectives and your strategic kind of objectives as well. So,
very, very cool. So I've always so I grew up with 2 older sisters, for those of you who 3 older sisters actually. So for those of you who are wondering why I'm telling you this, it seems like a weird detail, but I used to always grow up, I'm the youngest, and so I used to always grow up thinking, I can learn a lot from their successes, but I learned a hell of a lot more by watching what they did wrong. What did they get in trouble for? Okay, I'm not going to do that. But then I've applied that concept to, I guess, life as well. Like what have I seen other people do around me in my career that have done exceptionally well? And the things that I've liked and I thought could adapt to me, I've sort of tried to borrow people's techniques of their presentation style or different ways that they teach people or the way that they write or research or whatever it happens to be. I try to emulate those things at the same time as trying to avoid, I think, their own pitfalls, which I'm sure people do for me, and learning from what they potentially haven't done well. Is there things that you're obviously very successful in everything you've done from your education through to your career now, which is still at the very beginning of it. But is there anything that you potentially would look back on and say, I wish I had done that differently? And something you've probably learned from yourself, but helping us to learn ourselves
I think something that I have noticed across many of my peers and things like that as well. sometimes there's an expectation that marketing and advertising can work magic, I guess.
Okay.
And it can sometimes, but sometimes you can't just put money behind something and behind a campaign and expect to work miracles, I guess. So I think something to learn from, I guess, is just, again, having that strategic mindset and remembering that you have different tactics to pull, but it all should contribute to one overarching kind of objective and goal for the organization or for your marketing team or for your product or whatever it is. So I think, getting all of your stakeholders together and working as a team and contributing to that one kind of goal, whether that be to grow market share or it's to build up a better physical presence or it's to get into more stores or whatever it is. I think it's just really important to have everyone working towards that one common goal. And as well, of course, having those SMART objectives. So making sure that they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, they're time bound. I think that's something that you learn in undergrad as well. But sometimes people forget that as you're working in industry and you've worked thousands of campaigns and things like that. So I think just, making sure that you actually carry those fundamentals is super important.
That's really funny you should say that because, you teach this acronym to students, and I think you touch on it in Marketing Principles, which is our first semester course. But we also spend quite a bit of time on it in Essentials of Marketing Planning, which is the marketing strategy course in their third year. And, as you kind of everyone's like, oh, yeah, it sounds very obvious, right? But, and I think the acronym's wonderful because it's easy to remember But remembering to put it in place in industry sounds like a very important lesson to learn. Is there anything else that you thought that would be relevant that you'd want to share to the audience, or?
Yeah, I guess something that I guess a lot of undergrads would be across is TikTok, and that kind of the way that content has changed over the years and how we consume content. I think there's obviously more channels, there's more ways to engage our audiences, and there are always better opportunities for a delivery of a campaign, whether that be through better use of distinctive assets or it's a clearer message or whatever it is. But I think just having an understanding of your audience and understanding the customer journey, I think, is a really important thing. And understanding what different touch points you have with the customer along their path to purchase. And I think something to remember in any role is just how you can actually demonstrate value to your potential buyers. So whether that is to the mass market, which is, building out that mental and physical availability, of course. But, as people are ready to buy your brand and are actually searching for you or coming across your brand, how are you actually demonstrating value to them, I think is really important. So I think a big learning for me is just how important, I guess, user-generated content and that lo-fi content has become. I think especially if you are kind of targeting those younger audiences, it's just, these are just, I guess, approaches to marketing. Again, so tactically you're thinking about how you can leverage authenticity, engagement, and I guess the power of consumers as well when putting your product into their hands. So I think TikTok and those sorts of channels is just such an interesting new kind of form of advertising where you can, brands can create quite low quality, I guess, content, whether it's behind the scenes sort of content or it's just a user using the product in a really authentic way, and then combining that with quite polished assets. I think that is something that people can really have in the forefront of their mind when they're trying to build up brands, I guess, in the long term and the short term.
Very, very cool. So I've taken a lot of your time already this evening. You can't see the window. My window is just to the left of us, but you can slowly start to see the sun come down. So I've got a few more questions, if that's okay. Yeah, cool. That's good to ask. I like to read a lot, as I'm sure you do as well. Is there any sort of books, potentially on marketing, that you would recommend, that people pick up and have a good read from?
Yeah, definitely. I think I might be biased, but I guess How Brands Grow is such a crucial one. I think that would still be part of the readings, I'm sure, for courses. Yeah. So How Brands Grow, and I guess all of the Institute's book, Jenny's books as well. I think they're a bit of a collection now, in my mind. I think what is so great about them is that they're so straightforward. They put marketing fundamentals into its simplest form. And I think, again, as I said, like, it's easy for marketers to sometimes get bogged down by what they're doing. And I think those books are just a really nice refresher and sometimes brings us all back down to earth, and get out of our heads and actually just remember, like, this is why we do what we do and this is how we should kind of be doing it.
It's really funny you should mention How Brands Grow. So I had and then how it can give you those fundamentals. So someone asked me recently, like, oh, you work in marketing, right? Yeah. All right, what should I be doing for my Instagram campaign, for my business? And I'm like, I've got a book for you. And they're like, why would you give me a book to read? I don't need to do a PhD. I just want you to tell me. And I said to them, well, you should read this to get a basic understanding, and then we can have conversations afterwards, because then the conversations will be more fruitful for both of us, and it was written very easily to digest. So you don't need a marketing degree or a PhD to digest this book. It's very accessible. They weren't super thrilled. They have not read it, but that's all right. I haven't given them advice. I should be able to translate this into terms for someone who's not from marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't understand what maybe penetration is to begin with, then how can I explain to you or a category buyer or something like that? You need to know that. I think you should bother to learn the fundamentals first. But
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the best way.
I was wondering if I was being a bit too harsh.
No, not at all. No, I think just, it would be nice if everyone in marketing in our field just could speak the same language. And make all of our lives a lot easier, I think.
Absolutely. And then when you think you know everything, then all of a sudden you hear another buzzword or a new term, and it's like, oh my God, where did that come from? And then you quickly Google it.
No, definitely. And that's why having LinkedIn algorithms suit you and show you all the new trends is so important.
And with technology as well, like you were mentioning, those changes that are happening so fast, and you're like, okay, I need to keep across all of this. So a good chunk of the audience is potentially undergraduate students. And the clever ones, which those people who are listening to must be, would be thinking to themselves, okay, I want to get a position after I finish. I want my degree and all my help debt to be worth it. What will give me the best position to then land maybe a graduate role or an entry-level role within graduate? You're not going to be the chief marketing officer on day one, but what advice would you give them, given you've managed to secure so many different positions, from internships through to now leadership roles?
Yeah, so I guess as a young graduate trying to get out into the field, or it might even be before graduation, if you're fortunate to be able to score a role before you graduate, I think it's very exciting, but it's also very challenging. It's tiresome. It's hard. But I think you need to shift your mindset and think of it as exciting. You've got an amazing set of skills that you've now graduated with, and you can now take that and actually apply everything. So it's the start of your career. It's the start of your kind of career journey and building out your skill set, and working your way up the ladder. So I think the best kind of advice that I can offer is building up your own personal brand, as we kind of spoke about before. Networking as much as possible. So attending industry events, you can join different marketing related organizations, connecting with professionals in the field, as we spoke about. It can really help lead to different job opportunities and also just provide those insights into the industry that we spoke about before. You might be fortunate to have some different pieces of work that can help you build up your own portfolio, whether that be personal projects that maybe you're doing as a freelancer while you complete your undergrad studies, or you might be helping out your auntie's cafe with marketing or whatever it may be, but just kind of building out your personal portfolio, even if that is with some university work as well. Obviously looking for internships and just getting that hands-on exposure. There might be some digital marketing courses that you can also do just to kind of kickstart your skills in that industry, because a lot of that is learnt on the job. So again, just kind of having the fundamentals and certifications and things on your resumes, I think is quite helpful. And then, of course, there's that piece about staying current. So just following different trends, making sure that you can really go out into the industry and demonstrate to your potential employer that you can adapt to different trends within the industry. And then the final thing that I'll say is just being prepared. I think, being on the other side where I was on hiring panels and I would be looking through resumes and applications, just making sure that you've got that attention to detail is crucial. At the end of the day, we're working in marketing where you are writing ad copy, you are writing blog articles or whatever it is. So you need to show that you do have that attention to detail. And I think just going out ready for those interviews, having actually researched the company that you're applying for, understanding what the job is going to entail, and really making sure that your cover letter is tailored towards the organisation and why you want to work there, essentially making sure that you are hitting the brief. So you kind of imagine that the resume is a brief, essentially.
That's really cool. I think that's very clever. And especially, like you said, like you've got insights from going for it, but then also being on these hiring as well. All of these things that you're saying, is it the same learnings if you're in industry going for promotion, or does that differ a little bit? I'm not over the promotional system within industry.
Yeah, I would say that it all still really applies. And I guess your portfolio piece then becomes demonstrating the campaign work or the projects that you've led. And again, I think it really relates back to that, demonstrating leadership before you are one, demonstrating before you're a leader, demonstrating that you have that potential to take ownership, take on more responsibilities, is really important. So yeah, I think just building out your portfolio, and again, being on that hiring kind of panel side of things, that attention to detail and having people that have actually researched your organization, maybe even research people that are going to be on the panel. I think that's super important for people in industry to remember as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with the last point that you mentioned as well. Like, if you can, find out who is on the panel and see what they've been up to. That small thing that might cost you 5 minutes of your time can make a really good impression to a panel. I absolutely agree with you there. That's a really, really good point. So just to finish, I always like to sort of end on this piece. And it's really something about providing, whether it's the best advice you've ever received or advice you'd want to impart on other people, like, or maybe a favorite quote or something like that. Is there anything you would like to give our audience, to leave our audience on?
Yeah, it's something that I remind myself of quite a lot. And I think it's definitely, it's applicable to anyone, but I think especially as undergrads are searching for their next kind of role, I think it's important to remember, like, whatever will be, will be. I think sometimes it's just nice to remember that and remind yourself of that. I know it's a little bit generic, but I guess just trusting in the universe and understanding that sometimes, rejection can mean redirection, I guess, to something better. Is something that I've always kind of thought about. And I think just trusting your gut and working hard, thinking about, what's your intuition kind of telling you, everything will kind of fall into place. So for those undergrads out there applying for different roles, if you do get a rejection or anything, don't be worried, because you're going to end up exactly where you are meant to be.
I think that's very good. Rejection might be redirection. Love it. You should put that on a t-shirt.
Good idea.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon and evening with us and imparting upon all of your fascinating story and your knowledge. I think what's crazy is, just how young you actually are. And so I'm excited to see myself, obviously through LinkedIn, about how you kind of progress. And I'm very much excited about your current focus, which is on that new university. So thank you so much, Danielle. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. It's been great.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY for my take on the marketing issues of the day.
That was the Zac Anesbury Show.